This is war for the spirit. You have to come into the understanding as a person seeking God and God's will that that concept of good and bad is relative to man. God is above all things. That is good and bad. So if you are too focused on what you consider good, you're not going to recognize that the devil uses good in his battle against you as well. If you don't recognize that the devil will use some good things against you and use others good as a way of hindering you. And you also have to recognize that the relative good that's represented from the world is not always good to God. And the things that are of God will be considered evil to the world. So you have to get away from the idea of being good all the time, because it was a stumbling block for me as well for a little while, trying to be good, and it being in zealousness, good can become bad. So recognize that you must follow the will of God. Follow the instructions of God as you seek God in your endeavors and your day-to-day activities, seeking what it is that he wills for your life, for your interactions with others, and how you handle and conduct yourself in your decision making. God will give you instruction on what to do and how to do. And some of those things you might not see as good. God might not allow you to help somebody. And you trying to be too good, you may cause God to wear your situation thin, because you're not using what he's providing you in the way he's instructing you to. It's times where I have tried to forcefully help someone, and it was nearly clear to me that it was not in God's will that I help this person. And because of that, I've lost my wallet, all my identification cards. I'm trying to I lost the little money I had on me at the time, trying to help them. Then I'm taking it a further step. And you know what I'm saying? My little cards get shut down when I go to the ATM, because God is putting this person in a position of lack purposely. And they trying to depend on you instead of God, so they can make their decisions about how they want to live in this world. But instead of them dealing with God to get through to what it is that they're going to do in this world, they may know you as a solid person, and they trying to get to you. And in which case, God is not going to allow them to come to you and get between you and him. So they had to make the decision to trust God. And if they decided to trust you, God will collapse you to make sure they understand that, no, you have to deal with him, or you have to deal with the world. And if you want to be in the world, he'll allow you to go in the world. But if you're dealing with him, you have to make a clear decision at some point, and it cannot be an in-between thing. And I had to go through that myself. So I understand the fact that they have to go through that. And although you may have wanted a bridge or some kind of aid in between the time that you made your decision to be more comfortable, it's an opportunity that the devil might use that against them, and use that against you, and use that against God. You may think this person recognizes your help as something good and of God and from God for good, but that same person could see that goodness as you being a sucker. And whatever information the devil has put in their mind about how you operate, it'll line up to be like, yeah, it's suckers and it's us, and you know what I'm saying, and you'll just look like another sucker to them, and they operating under the will of the demons. So you have to be mindful of that. So don't always try to be good. Try to be in God. Okay, God has instructions for almost every facet of life. If you look deeply enough into God's instructions and you focus and pray, God will give you understanding about anything that you seek him for. So go into that and determine your decisions based on that and what you're seeking in him. God may give you a different instruction than what he gives me, from what I'm seeking and what I'm understanding. So, I can't give you a solid formula. The solid formula would be seeking God and his understanding for you. So do that, and don't be too caught up on what you think is good and what you think is bad, because many things will be bad and many things will be good, but God is overseer of all things. And when you are in his will, you may have to step into what is perceived as bad and evil. And I believe personally as my walk has grown and shown me, there will be many people who are perceived to seem like demons that are going to be walking into heaven, and many people who are going to be perceived as angels that are going to be walking into hell. As your knowledge and understanding about the world grows, you're going to understand that glow of light or looking good is looking like a good person. A lot of times is where the devil hides his most intense demons. And many of us that are good people are already covered in cloaks of darkness to diminish the light that you bear. You may be perceived as a terrible person. You know, the devil got you hooked onto a lifestyle before you got to the point where you could choose God, and you may be covered in darkness and you just don't look like it ain't no good in you. But I know many people who seem to be very dark that are good people, and I know many people who seem to be very bright and clean and well kept people that do not have a soul and a heart for God, and they can recite scripture after scripture after scripture. And you know, it's just as your awareness grows, you can see the light in the dark of people through their behaviors in the most tiniest things. You know, your works is how you demonstrate yourself. Your fruit is how people demonstrate themselves. And if you know to watch a person's fruit, if you know to watch a person's work for how they, you know, handle themselves in their activities, God will show you how to discern people. So be mindful of that, so that you don't put yourself outside of the will of God trying to be a good person. Okay. God will use good and bad so that he be glorified and that he get his will done. And just the same, the devil will use bad and good to destroy, for destruction, to cast souls into hell. So be mindful of that. You guys be good to God, and you let God be good to you. Please help grow the channel by liking, sharing, and subscribing.